Hey there, Cognacs. Welcome to all my favorite things from the screen. My name is Dallas, and I have another video on Hulu's Only Murders in the Building. This is one of my loyal listeners, Morticia's theories on who killed Bunny. I'm excited to go over them, though I don't have all of them in my top list. Anything is possible, and I would love to see any of these ideas or storylines come to fruition. Her first candidate, these are not in any particular order, is Cinda Canning. So Morticia's theory is that Cinda makes a career in causing murders to give herself content, that the Only Murders in the Building's podcast threatens her empire. So she would take them out and create a new podcast on their demise at the same time. I gotta say, I love this. The queen of murder podcasters is a murderer herself. It would be an interesting turn that most would not see coming. I'm a big fan of Tina Fey, and I would be ecstatic if this were the case. This made me go back over all of Cinda's dialogue. I might find a clue for something for season 2. We will talk about that in another video, but I have to say I'm not too sure that it's likely that Cinda is our Canning. At least the first part, that she is a podcaster that creates murders for content. We don't know much info on the cases Cinda has covered. We don't know if they are cold cases or they're recent cases, but she has brought up one case that she claims she's gotten a confession from a mayor by giving him a turkey. So that would be a hell of a frame job to frame a mayor for a killing of at least one person. She stated that she won multiple Peabodys for her journalistic work. And though I do believe we will see more outside of the building next season, I think it would be a far turn from what the show has shown to have a celebrity in her own right be the killer. I think the framing of a mayor would be a really hard thing to do. Possible multiple frame jobs of all the different cases she's covered all over the state of Oklahoma could be a stretch, but this could be her first time setting up a murder to make money off of it. In that case, I can see it 100% turning out that way, especially knowing she would be in the forefront. That's a lot more likely situation if this is to be true. I very much agree that it's possible that Cinda could see the Only Murders in the Building podcast to be competition. She just got acquired for $30 million, and her popular podcast may not be enough if someone is encroaching in her area of expertise. She would need something new to show she's worthy of the money, and it would be a very dangerous game she's playing. I wonder how big the Only Murders in the podcast was. Was it anywhere near as popular as All Is Not Okay in Oklahoma? And if this is the case, why would she not attempt to bring them under her banner of podcasts? We do know that I believe their name was the Horticulture Brothers, that gave Oliver and Charles a ride, have a podcast of their own that is under her flagship. I'm sure with the Demas' wrongdoings, our favorite podcasters could migrate their podcast to Cinda's network. There's a lot of possibilities here, but my biggest issue is that I think that this theory is largely predicated on the fact that for some reason Cinda and Poppy were at the Arconia at the time of Mabel's arrest. And it is very strange, and I agree, and a lot of strange things happen on the show. But I'm assuming that it all took place days after Jan was arrested for Tim's murder, and Charles was sent to the hospital. Oliver spent time with his son. Mabel finished a mural. All these things could have happened the same day. I find it unlikely, and it doesn't make sense why Cinda and Poppy were there. Why would they be there at the building in the first place? It could end up that she was there for this very reason, to frame Mabel and to create a more popular podcast than Only Murders in the Building. But I think that it was done just to make things look more intriguing. I love this show, but I do not think that it was a fair play mystery. All the clues weren't really there for us to figure out. I believe that we're going to look back at it and see that it actually means nothing, and they were just put there at the Arconia for simplicity, and the plot needed them to be there. Again, there was quite a few things from season 1 that didn't make sense or weren't really explained that I know 100% are going to be dead storylines that won't come back, and we just had to go with it. And I believe that the reason of them being there is going to be one. They may pull on the idea that Cinda has something to do with it, but if they did, I think that it would be a red herring. But who knows? I wish Bunny could give us some clues. Morticia also floats the idea that Poppy could have been Bunny's killer. To me, this is in the same vein as Cinda. I like the idea that Poppy would want to get in the good graces of Cinda and try and further her career. Poppy could indeed do this to impress her boss. But ultimately, with the inside information, I think that Poppy would create her own podcast with the information. If Cinda was willing to take the name of the podcast, Only Murderers in the Building from Poppy, and openly not give her any credit, I don't think that any insight Poppy gives Cinda would help her career. Cinda seems to be a very selfish person, and I think that Poppy would know this working so closely with her. I think Cinda would continue to take credit for it, as it is her name that was just bought. She wouldn't want anyone, including her assistant, to threaten her podcasting empire. I also think that if Cinda or Poppy were seen inside of the building, it would draw major red flags. And I'm wondering if that is something that we're going to see, which would turn everything upside down. And as much as I love these theories that one of those two could be involved, I don't see a clear enough end game. Charles, Mabel, and Oliver would never confess. From what we know of them, there's nothing airtight that would tie them to the crime. So Cinda or Poppy would be working on a murder podcast that would never be solved definitively, especially if the people who are being accused are people who have found the true killer, albeit it took many wrong people that they accused before they got there. But it is a very dangerous game, and I think it goes against what Cinda is known for, solving impossible murders. But at the end of the day, it is still a very big possibility. Let's continue this conversation on the possibility of Poppy, or more likely Cinda theories. I want to hear what you guys think about it. I may be overlooking something that's right in front of my nose. Now, Morticia's third suspect, or suspects, are my favorites, and they're actually at the top of my list for alternate theories, and it's one I can 100% get behind. The Arconias podcast fanatics, the Arconiacs. Now, we know all too well the dangers of loving something too much and never wanting it to end. There are endless stories of crimes of this nature, wanting what you love to end, and Morticia brings up another very good point. In front of the Arconiacs, Charles states he would return, or the podcasters would return, with more episodes in the unlikely event another neighbor was murdered. I agree, these fans are indeed way too obsessive, picketing out front of the apartment building all day and night, waiting for another episode. It is not a stretch of the imagination that one or all could go to extreme lengths to keep the podcast going, and would be even more exciting if the hosts were the main suspects. I would love for this to be what happened, but I wonder if this is the case, how would the podcasters lure Bunny to Mabel's room? I would assume that they do know where Bunny lives, as it was mentioned in the podcast, and they could have gone to her, as Morticia states, for anyone claiming that there's an emergency in the room, and they could have gone to her, as Morticia stated before, anyone claiming that there's an emergency in the room to Bunny could get her to go there, not knowing it was in the ruse for her untimely demise. I think that this would be an interesting scene to see play out, even if it happened at the end of the season 2. I think their cover for getting into Bunny's apartment would have to be like a gunshot or a struggle or screaming. Who knows? After hearing that, I don't know what Bunny would do. Granted, she would go there, but would she also call the police? That would maybe make sense if someone went to Bunny saying something is going on in Mabel's room. She calls the police. That explains why we heard sirens so early, and then they get there and kill Bunny. But if the Arconiacs, or one or all of them, are guilty, I think that they are very charismatic. And if they got Bunny to go to Mabel's room, they could have gotten her to ease up. Maybe offer her a hoodie through fun conversation and, it's no big deal. It's really funny. We were just trying to be careful. You should put this on. And as Morticia stated before, Mabel's narrative intro is in fact a part of one of the podcast episodes. The superfans would be the most likely to use that information in order to convolute the situation and keep the podcast going. Anything like this happened, I would think that it would need to be a group effort, and I'm not sure one of the superfans would be enough to pull off such a crime by themselves. Overall, I think these are some very solid theories, but like all theories, it just leads to more questions. Got so many questions. Those are my thoughts on Morticia's top 3 candidates. Please let me know what you think of these 3 as perpetrators of Bunny's killing. Is there anything that either of us have missed? Morticia, please keep thoughts and theories coming, and expect another small video on Jan and what I think she knew coming up in a few days. Thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the rooftop.